This is the part that I always get the most stressed out about whenever I do an interview, is making sure I record it and don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Support for this podcast comes from the patrons at patreon.com/FMLFPL.
Okay. Hi, guys. This is Walsh with a Fireside chat. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by longtime Discord community member, legend, Cutler, all the way from way down under. How are you doing, Cutler?
Yeah. How you doing, Walsh? First time caller, long time listener. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, pleasure to have you. So we're chatting Chelsea today. That's kind of Cutler's a big time Chelsea guy. Pretty plugged into what's going on over at the bridge, even though he, is a little bit far away from the bridge, but that's not going to stop us, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
My old man's a season ticket holder. So, he goes to as many games as possible every year. So
you were born into it, right on?
I was born into it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. So, I think there's no better place to start than the manager, right? You get the Brighton manager coming over, midway through. To mixed effect, it seems safe to say, some good, some bad, some medium. But maybe you just talk us through, kind of how you've seen Potter's beginning, middle, where he's at.
Yeah, I think to start off with, a lot of the feeling around Tuchel getting sacked was pretty negative. I don't think a lot of fans really expected it. So coming in with replacing a Champions League winning manager with a slightly more unproven manager was not a recipe for immediate fan success. I think the big thing that really made a difference was that we didn't lose for the first 9. I think, we won 7 of the first 9. That was a really big bonus for us. I think not only did we steal Potter, we stole half of his recruitment staff, half of the Brighton backroom staff. Must only be about 4 people working at Brighton now, but from the beginning, I was pretty impressed. I don't think he changed too much, and he didn't really need to be honest. We've played with 3 central defenders for about 3 years now. We played with wing backs. Our defenders are better in sort of overloaded wide positions as well. So right up until the Brighton game, I was feeling really optimistic, and we just had a lot of injuries pile up as well, and we kind of got smashed by Brighton. I think that was kind of a big down to earth. Everybody's a little bit oh God, what's going on here? Can we bounce back? But didn't really happen, and a lot of sort of first team injuries. Chilwell being out, James being out. We lost Kepa just before the World Cup. We lost Kovacic for a while. Jorginho was out. I don't think I've seen a picture of Kante in about 6 months. I don't know where he is. Got horrible injuries. So we haven't had too much luck on the injury front, but when it comes to the initial stages of Potter, I think everyone was pretty optimistic, but now's the chance to sort of get back in to the Prem and prove it again.
Yes, we know you guys didn't finish well leading into the World Cup. You lost almost every game with a draw the last 5 or so.
Yeah.
Not the easiest fixtures. We're looking back. There's Newcastle loss, Arsenal loss, Brighton got destroyed, draw Man United, draw Brighton. So are you putting it down to mostly injury and just he's fighting multiple fronts? There was Europe going on in there, and you feel as the squad gets more fit that the results should kind of follow, or is there a concern?
Yeah, well, I think the major concern for me was that we had to play very, very sort of fringe players for the last couple of weeks. The Newcastle game, we're playing Loftus-Cheek every game. He's played a lot more than he should, really, I think. Not having Kovacic, not having Jorginho, not being able to rely on Gallagher. I know you're a big fan of Gallagher at Palace, but he's not really played the same way at Chelsea. He doesn't have the same role. He has to play more of a sitting midfielder role more than anything, and that's not really what he's good at. So having him play in a 2-man midfield against I think he got sent off at Leeds. He got just sort of overrun pretty much any time he played. I think the biggest difference for me is that we still don't have a very good offensive structure. If James doesn't play, if Chilwell doesn't play, you're not going to score very many goals. I think bringing in a lot of players, there's no proven goal scorer. Mount, Kai, Raz, they're good players. I really like all three of them, but they're not goal scorers. They're not goal scorers, and Raz more than anything. If that's the player that you're buying to overcome XG deficiencies and actually get you more goals than what you're expecting to get, it's just not gonna work out that way. We don't play the same way City does. Our expected goals don't come from the 6-yard box, 5 feet from goal. Our chances come from crosses and through balls and things like that. So the other one is Aubameyang. I think he was good to start off with, and I thought Sterling was good to start off with as well under Tuchel, but we don't have that coherent attacking structure, and we don't really have a traditional goal scorer in the squad.
Well, Obbs would disagree with that, but I take your point. Maybe at this point in his career, he can't be relied on the same way.
Yeah.
So maybe, we got started talking about the attack. Why don't we maybe get a little bit more into that? I think we saw Broge injured, right? He won't
be back for the season. Yeah, it'll be next. It'll be almost this time next year. It sounds like.
So sure. So it looks like, right, leading into the break, he was rotating a lot. The team sheets were very uncertain. Do you see, from an FPL standpoint, Sterling play consistently, or, Mount, I guess, is the most assured of minutes of the attacking options? Do you think he's, what do you see there? Is there anyone who you have any inclination or his guy or something like that we might be able to jump on? Or is it going to be, horses for courses, playing different players depending on opposition kind of thing?
Yeah, I'll start with Mount. I think one of the things that has changed about his role under Potter compared to under Tuchel is that he drops more into midfield way more often now. His role is a little bit different than it was under Tuchel. He spends way more time in the middle third, not as close to goal. I think that makes him less of a viable FPL option than it would previously. Under Tuchel, a lot of the time, he and James on the right-hand side would usually have a pretty similar sort of area that they would fill. They would be quite close to goal. He would score a lot from close positions. He doesn't do that as much anymore, especially under Potter. He's supposed to come deep, sort of overlap in field, and have the wingbacks go beyond him and make passes and goals from that position. I think he's less of an option. Sterling, there was a lot of talk about whether or not he was playing as a wingback. He's always the most advanced player when Chelsea play. He's not playing as a wingback. He's almost playing as a wide striker. So I would be more confident in Sterling as an FPL option. I don't think it's terrific. I don't think you'd probably rather buy Bruno, who's 0.1 more. But Raz is going to be closer to goal more than anything else. I don't think Kai is an option either. Potter doesn't seem to like playing him as a striker. Plays him more like a 10, behind Aubameyang. I think that if he was playing at striker every game, Aubameyang gets injured, we don't buy a striker. Kai's playing up front every game. Sure, there's that's probably okay if we have good fixtures because he will play every game. There was a period last season, when he got the crazy points versus Norwich and Fulham, I think it was. We had a great double game week where he scored 1 billion points, but he was always playing up front then. So those are the kind of areas that you can exploit when it comes to if you'd ever want to pick Kai. And the other thing that we have is we have Ziyech and Pulisic coming back off really good World Cups. Sure. They haven't played very much. And when they do play, Pulisic plays as a wing back more than he does as a winger. And Ziyech doesn't really play at all. And I know you love Ziyech. And I love Ziyech as well. I think he's great, but they just don't really play. So that's like an extra 2 guys that could just get rotated in and out. Like I don't see why there wouldn't be change. Like there could be consistent rotation and changes all the time. And Potter does like to mess with his lineups. Like we've had so many changes, more than I think every team except one in the Premier League this season. Like
that sounds
we
about
will
right.
change. We will change our lineup every week. Where you want to pick up Chelsea players is in defense, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Ziyech to me is just such a wrong player for like Potter and what they're trying to do. I just really can't imagine any position that he could fit and play well in, based on what they do. But who knows? Maybe he'll get his song out of him eventually. But yeah, Pulisic is an interesting one, right? He's only 5'7". When you look for goals in the team, he's obviously not like prolific, but he can chip in with some goals from midfield. But Raz is still, to me, the interesting one because he does offer something that nobody else does on the team. With his pace and his ability to get in behind and his ability to hold the ball up and be dangerous in the box. I'm always interested if he starts playing consistently from a fantasy perspective, just because, he does know how to put the ball in the back of the net kind of thing. But from what I'm hearing you say, it sounds like it's going to be difficult to kind of peg any one of these guys down for regular starts.
Yeah, well, I think the only one that I would be confident that starts all the time is Mount. Aside from that, I mean, he's so important to what we do, and even to how Potter plays. Like under Tuchel, he was incredibly important to how Tuchel wanted to play. Under Potter, like he's played pretty much every game. Yeah. So he will play.
He doesn't get any points.
Yeah, but he's not going to get any points, and he's further away from goal than when he was getting no points anyway.
Yeah,
so,
that's a bad. I think that's a bad.
It's a
my
bad
calculations. I'm not a mathematician.
He's also off some set pieces as well now. Like he doesn't take as many corners as he used to under Tuchel. Yeah, those average avenues for points. They don't always work out, but Mount was like last season he was like a 10 and 10 guy. Like he could get 10 goals, 10 assists because he had the free kicks and he had both side corners and things like that, but not as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he's only on 2 goals, 3 assists, and he's been playing pretty much every game. It's just not very good output. Okay, interesting on Mount, because I know I've been seeing a lot of Mount tankers because of the fixtures coming up. But all right, a little cold water on that one. Why don't we go back to the defense then? Because they're certainly priced well, within reason. And like you're mentioning, a lot of the attack comes from the wide areas, Chilwell, Reece, but maybe you could start off just talking any fitness updates on, I think Reece is back in train, but Reece, Fofana, Chilwell, do you have any ideas about what they're up to these days?
Yeah. Well, so I'll start with Kepa. Kepa's back training with the team as well. So that's, I think Kepa's a really good option. We'll talk about that.
You expect him just straight back in, right?
Yeah. Mendy's not a Potter player. I think he, like Brighton when he came in and took over from Houghton, there were a lot of players in there that were not progressive passes of the ball or quick passes of the ball. Like Mendy, Koulibaly, Matt Ryan. Yeah, exactly. A lot of I don't expect Jorginho to stay after this season either. I expect him to play quite a bit because we only have 2-3 fit midfielders. But he's not a Graham Potter player. He's not a strong, progressive midfielder. He's a recycling, hold on to the ball kind of midfielder. Very slow.
Fucking scumbag.
Yeah, exactly. More on defenders. Kepa's in training. Fofana, Chilwell, and James are all training as well. I don't believe that Chilwell will be fit to begin with. From what I can tell, he's the only one that's still working away from the main team.
Okay.
More than anything, because he was injured the latest out of everybody. So James and Fofana have had much longer to sort of recover. James got injured in October.
Okay.
And it's almost Christmas. So
those
players are from notes that came out this morning, from press conferences and training pictures, Kepa and James and Fofana are training with the team specifically to be fit for the Bournemouth game.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, just to touch on the fixtures briefly, because I realize we haven't done that. I mean, part of the reason why we wanted to bring you on, Cutler, and talk about Chelsea is their fixtures are just really good. Coming off the break, they have home Bournemouth at NFO, then they double with home City at Fulham, home Palace at Liverpool, home Fulham again. So they have a double dip on Fulham. And these players were mentioning, right? I mean, Kepa's only 4-5 still. He started at 4-5, he dropped to 4-4, he's back to 4-5, but you know, it's just good value there. And Fofana's still someone so interesting to me. He's 4-3. He's back down. And he started at 4-5. He's been dropping with the injuries and the transfers and everything like that. With Reece and Chilwell both 5'8". So in terms of how the defense is kind of set up, he has been also, right, sort of don't know who's going to play. It's been a lot, I think, injury related, but, can you maybe speak to some of the specific players of, when fit, I expect like X to play all the games kind of stuff, or, what are you kind of seeing from this stable of defenders?
Yeah. Someone I didn't mention as well as like not a traditional Graham Potter player is Aspil. He's old now. And I mean, I love him. He's been a great player for Chelsea for 10 years, but he's old and he's not going to be able to play every week, and nor can he play 3 times in a week when James is out, which is a lot of what we had to do. And that's why like RLC would play at wing back half the time. So I expect James to play every game he's fit ever.
So he'll probably make it for like a game or two, and then we'll see him again in April.
I don't know, April, March? Something like that. Depends. At the end of it, like James will play as many games as possible. He's Chelsea's best player, I think. He is like our most creative player. Half the time, he's the best goal scorer on the team as well. Like he's in advanced positions all the time. But he is developing a habit of being injury prone, and I think one of the big things about James is that as long as he's fit, he's going to play. But you could miss. You could get him. He could start 5 and then be injured for 3. And then play 5 and injured for 4. He's one of those streaky players, and I would definitely very, very highly consider starting with him for this run of fixtures.
Is he in your team?
He is in my team at the moment. So is Kepa. And I have had Fofana as well. I think it is less likely that he immediately plays every single game. The players that like Aspil and Chalobah have played more under Potter because they've been fit and able to play in that sort of right centre-back role. They will probably, at the very least, continue to play games for Chelsea. I don't expect Fofana to just immediately come in and partner Thiago Silva and then that's it. He needs to be monitored. Like he had a broken leg and now he had like a 3-month hamstring injury. He won't play every game from the start. So if he's like your 4th or 5th defender, like you're really happy with 3 guys, like everyone will have Trippier. Most people have Cancelo. Most people have Dalot. Most people might have White or James. Like I don't mind like the 5th option being Fofana, as long as you're like prepared to have like you've got another bench guy. Like a lot of people will have Somerville or Pereira. These are good guys to sort of know that they'll be better off your bench than Fofana will be for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I guess it's hard how to structure your team if you do have Fofana, because part of why he is such an interesting pick is he is a start every week option. He's just a Chelsea defender, and he's 4-3. So it's almost like for him to be good in FPL, you structure your team so that he is a starter, so that you can trim even more money on your defense and maybe put it in attack or put it elsewhere. But when you're kind of starting with him, maybe off the wild card, and you don't know how fit he is, you don't know when he's going to play, like maybe he's someone that you would rather transfer in a few game weeks rather than start with. Maybe he's like someone that you want to downgrade for money. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he doesn't, and there's no real downside to not having him at the start. Like he's not
of course
a goal scoring defender. Right. Like he won't score 15-9 or something like that in the first 3. And he won't be expensive. I think also a lot of people are going to have Dalot or White or both, like that, like 4-7, 4-8 area. If those players, and Arsenal have quite tricky fixtures, Man United, like they're a bit of a toss-up, but they are good at the moment. Like if either of those players don't work out and Fofana starts playing games, like it's an easy transfer.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel about Cucurella? Because he's been also somewhat in and out of the team, in and out as an FPL option, gets ripped off at halftime, sometimes plays wing back, sometimes plays center back. What do you make of him moving forward? He's 5'1".
Yeah, I don't think that even at 5'1", if he's fit, like I would pick him, mostly because I think eventually he'll slot into that left center back role. Koulibaly had been playing there a lot because Chilwell was injured. Cucurella had to play wing back. Sometimes he was still playing center back, and then Pulisic was playing left wing back, or those kind of things. I don't think he's an FPL option, mostly because I think that his start to his Chelsea career has been quite like disjointed. Like he was sick. He's not like a big guy, and he lost like 12 pounds or something in 2 weeks because of illness, and he had to put on a lot of muscle and come back and still play every game. And yeah, I wouldn't personally consider him an FPL option because I don't know what the plan is for him. I assume it's to play him as a left center back because he's left-footed and he's very proficient at at direct passing. Like he passes the ball so quickly, and he passes it between the lines. He passes like up to strikers quite often.
Yeah,
which makes him a really
going into the box.
Yeah, and it makes him a good Graham Potter player, but I don't think it makes him a good FPL option for Chelsea. I would rather have James or Chilwell.
Yeah. I mean, Potter's last plan was to sell him, so now I think that's where we're sort of watching him come over, right? Communally thinking, oh, well, he knows him well. He can just put him in, and he knows the fucking instructions, and he'll do fine. But it's been anything but. It's almost like he's the spare part or whatever, who he's kind of puts him in and takes like just fucking his plaything or something. Yeah, but he is so much cheaper. That's the thing, though, right? Yeah. He is a lot. I mean, 0.7 is a lot less than James, a lot less than Chilwell. So, I mean, I guess would you be interested in Tilv at 5'4"? I mean, knowing that he's first choice, knowing he's old and he's going to miss a game occasionally, but like, do you think that the defense is good enough, or are there just better picks out there?
Well, I think he's like, if I was to rank the options, I would say like James and Kepa are like the best two options, and then it's probably more of like a slightly a wait and see on Fofana. But after that, it's Tilv to me is definitely a good option. If you have the money and you already have Trippier, we haven't talked about like we're not talking like full fantasy, but if you have that spare million between like Ben White and Thiago Silva, like there are options all over the field. Tilv is like an interesting one because he is really old, but he keeps saying, and like all the interviews that are done with him are like, well, this is like, I'm in my best form in like 10 years. Like I feel young, I feel good, but he won't play every single game, but he is a bone magnet as well. Like when he plays and when we clean, he's like a 7-point guy. Like he always picks up passing bones and things like that.
Yeah, generally.
He is an option, but is he better than Fofana if Fofana starts playing every week as well? No. So
that's an if. Right? I guess it is an interesting kind of price bracket because, that 5 to 5.5 million defender, looking up and down the league, there just aren't that many good FPL picks there, with City having a lot of rotation in that price bracket. Liverpool, the second center back still kind of don't know who it's going to be. Spurs are a little bit of a mess. Who's good there? Don't know. Arsenal, they have a couple picks, but they're also cheaper options. So, there actually isn't a ton of competition. I mean, trips, right? Mentioning him, and then, unless you're going up the ladder to Cancelo or something, which is a different region. So, yeah, I mean, maybe Tilv is somewhat interesting if you're looking for that third pick and you do want Reece, or if you can't stretch to Reece, he still gives you a share pretty reliably, right? For Chelsea
absolutely.
defense.
Absolutely. If you can't get to James, it's a good alternative, I think, because he'll play like both games of the double, for example, that kind of thing. You'd be pretty confident that he plays pretty much every game that he can.
Yeah, and I mean, Champions League isn't until February. It's a long way away. So, he'll probably just not play Cup or whatever, but you could imagine him maybe playing all but like one game till March 1st or something. Like, that wouldn't be surprising. Yeah. He's only missed 2 games all year, so yeah. No,
that wouldn't surprise me. And I mean, Chelsea went out of the Cup to City, the Milk Cup.
One of them.
One of them. And now we have to play City again in the other Cup.
Oh, nice one. So you're done with the Cups very quickly.
Yeah, the Cups are all done for this season, which is great. We played like a team of like 17-year-olds against City. Before
Potter can focus on the 2 competitions that matter.
Exactly. So that's another benefit. Under Tuchel, we played like 65 games a season. Like we played like pretty much everything because we got to basically every final previous year. So there'll be more rest for players like James and Thiago Silva and I think like not FPL wise, but players like Kovacic as well will get more chance to rest.
Yeah. So, you mentioned Conte being out and, he's kind of been needs must, who's available, pick him at midfield. Is there anything there to, the clean sheets being a little bit more questionable based on who's available? Like, are there any times where you're like, oh, that's the midfield, we're fucked or something like that? We're not going to keep it clean. Like, how do you kind of see that?
Yeah, I think a lot of Chelsea fans and certainly I know when you guys talk about Chelsea, I share a very similar sentiment. Like I see Ruben Loftus-Cheek playing in midfield. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, man. Like, I mean, like he was a really great servant like under Sarri as well. Like he was really great. He was obviously not playing in midfield. Then he was playing like number 10. But after like a serious injury, he doesn't have the stamina and the legs to be a Premier League midfielder. And I love Gallagher. I really do. I think he's got a great future as a really good footballer, but I don't think that he can be played in a 2 in the middle of midfield. It just hasn't worked to this point for Chelsea, and I don't think it will continue to work because that's not what he's good at. Good at high. He's sort of like Mason Mount. Like they share very similar attributes. They press really well. They sort of get into advanced positions. They try to pass between the lines. They try to like create for other people, overlap, that kind of thing. I don't really think that he's the answer to our midfield woes. And Kovacic and Ziyech, because they still have to play the third place World Cup game. It sort of came out this morning that they're not expecting them to play against Bournemouth at all. They're sort of saying like you take every other player got 8 days off, like 8 days rest, so you can have your 8 days as well, and that means that they'll definitely miss Bournemouth.
Okay.
And that would, to me, I think that would probably mean that we play Jorginho and Ruben Loftus-Cheek in midfield against Bournemouth, which is not something that I would be particularly confident about, but I would be much more confident with James, Chilwell, Thiago Silva, Kepa, all back playing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's something to be much more positive about than it is to be negative about the sort of the lack of midfield options.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it is just another thing to mention, right? You guys have 4 cleans this year.
Yeah.
It's really bad. I mean, it's about as bad as any team in the league. So, that is something like we're not buying like, oh yeah, they were a well-oiled machine. They have great fixtures. They're just going to clean. I mean, to me, I'm still cautious. Like I'm still like kind of worried, about cleans, like that kind of the brittleness. It seems like where they just do tend to, lose concentration or focus or let someone in behind. I mean, and it is reminding me a lot of Potter's earlier days at Brighton where they would let up exactly like 1 goal all the time, and just by nature of like the spacing and, where everyone is. And, I mean, it's not like Chelsea, Potter plays some type of compact defensive football. Like it's very much, free flowing. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely nowhere near 2 defenders. I think that's nuts. But I guess you don't really see Reece as a defender necessarily. And I don't know. I mean, like to me too, even with Kepa, I don't know, like, I know he's 4-5, but they're not that good. Like, why would I spend more on him when I could get, Dan Ward, who's the best goalie in the world?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I don't know. It's a little
7
bit. I think
points
there's
per
still
game, Danny Ward.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. I mean, I think there's still question marks there. Do you share that kind of trepidation, or do you think it will be, they're going to figure it out? Fixtures breed form. These are easy fixtures. Like, you got to go now, or are you also a little bit concerned?
Well, I certainly wouldn't begrudge anyone if they told me, like, well, there's no way I'm getting a Chelsea guy. Like, I would say, like, that's fair enough. Like, we haven't been, like, we're 8th at the moment, like, we lost, like, 3 of the last 5, put up, like, very limited shots on target, not defending very well, not playing very well. But it's a different team that's going to play against Bournemouth than it was against Newcastle. Like, James and Chilwell. And Kepa being back, like Mendy's sort of decline in the last, 8 months as opposed to sort of last year was really unbelievable. Like, he was so good in 2021, and so was the whole defense. I think a big reason for that as well was Rudiger, who's no longer there, which is a big thing. And signing Koulibaly to replace Rudiger, like, I saw the idea. Like, he has leadership capabilities. Like, he's the captain of his national team. He's a very, very, very good player, but he's not a Graham Potter player. Koulibaly. He's more like he's sort of Dan Burney
first,
in a
ask
lot of
questions
ways.
later.
Yeah. And I don't think that is necessarily a recipe for disaster, but I would feel more confident about our defensive ability this point in the season than I did, like, before the World Cup.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Chalobah also, we haven't really talked about it. He's 4'7". I think he's terrible at defending, but he definitely can pass.
Yeah.
So that's somewhat of an interesting guy, maybe, who can emerge as someone that Potter really likes. Don't know. But yeah, I just feel like still without Conte, for me personally, like, I'm just generally concerned about, and now hearing this about Kovacic, like, if he's not going to be playing, I don't really, you tell me whoever the fuck is playing defense when the midfield is, pick 2 or 3 from, like, Jorginho who can't move, RLC, Gallagher. Like, I'm like, okay, Mount having to play more defensive responsibilities. I'm just like, that's all an issue, and he's not, like, making up for that by dropping the line deeper or something and being more compact. Like, he's still playing the same way. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit worried that this could be kind of trappy for FPL because the fixtures are so good. I'm sure, for me personally, whichever way I go will be the wrong way, but I'm used to that.
You can text me before the game week starts, then let me know.
Yeah. This is who I'm going for, and then you do the opposite. I'll give you that intel.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, man. I mean, is there anything else you wanted to touch on that maybe we haven't done yet, or just any other Chelsea kind of notes or comments you want to make?
Yeah, no, I think we pretty much covered a lot. I don't think we missed out on anything. Like, I think one of the biggest things to keep an eye on is, like, what happens with the sort of the forward department as well. Like, does Aubameyang play every game at striker? Does Kai play at all? Like, is Raz still the furthest forward guy? Because those are the areas that are sort of more up in the air, and, like, all of a sudden Pulisic plays 5 games in a row at left wing, like, he's similar price to someone like Almiron. Like, that's an option. Like, Almiron doesn't continue to be like, score every single week off one shot. Like, maybe that's a way. Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe that's a place to go. Like, with your Almiron money, like, Pulisic starts playing every game or something like that. But yeah, I think that pretty much gets it for me.
All right, buddy. So I think that's a pod.
That's a fucking pod.
All right. Thank you very much, Cutler, for joining us. I don't know when Alon will put this out, sometime in the next couple of days, and hope you guys enjoyed listening, and I hope I recorded it.
Big shout out to the Aussie lads who listen. We created our own, like, fantasy league with all the some of the Australians that listen to the podcast. So
what do you do, fantasy rugby or something?
No, we do our own little fantasy of just a bunch of the Aussie guys that are all big fans of the podcast.
Oh,
So
nice
big
one.
shout outs
And
to
even-
big shout outs to those boys.
Do you want to give any specifics, or we'll just leave it at that?
No, we can leave it at that. Half of them are Arsenal fans, so they can go fuck themselves.
All right, man.
All right, cheers, bro.